Hey guys, I hope you're doing great today, and I can't wait to bring you the show. But before I do, I just want to make a quick request. If you're listening to the show and you're getting good value and you're enjoying the content and you feel that it's valuable, if you could just take a second and go and give me a rating and review in whatever platform you listen, whether it be Apple or Google or Spotify, whatever it is, just go and give me a rating and review. That would be very appreciated. All right, guys, let's dive in. People in my company are tied to the net. They're incentivized by our revenue and specifically our net revenue, net income. So if I do that, I'm going to demoralize my team. It's just going to make everybody demoralized and mad. You know what I mean? Like it's all going to come out. So we don't do that. We play the game fairly and we play it as if we were a buyer with the one perk of we get to see the bids and we can match the highest bid.
You're listening to the Just Start Real Estate Podcast. If you're serious about your real estate investing business and need real answers, you are in the right place. And now, your host, Mike Simmons.
All right, thank you for joining me on the show. I appreciate you being here. I have another fantastic live replay. So I do a live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. on Facebook, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific on Facebook. If you go to Just Start Real Estate on Facebook, you can participate, ask questions. I'll be there for you to answer them. But if you do miss it, you can come here on Thursdays. I do a replay of those, and I think they're hugely beneficial. This was a really, really fun one. We talked a little bit about multifamily versus single family. We've talked about the BRRRR strategy a little bit, and when do you refinance, and how does that all look? And we talked about rentals, like if you have rentals, renting them to employees of yours, and is that a conflict and something that I would recommend against? Spoiler alert, I think it's a bad idea, but you can hear my full answer. And then we talked about when and if there's a downturn. What happens? What do we do as real estate investors if there is a downturn? And we had a conversation around that. And we also talked pretty extensively, actually, about buying properties. When either the market's going up or down, how do you adjust your buy price and what does that look like? What's the formula? And so you can listen to all of those answers and more. I think this is a really fun one. And I don't want to waste any more of your time. Let's dive in. All right, we're live, guys. Thank you for coming back. I appreciate it. If this is your first time logging in and participating in a live, then welcome. I appreciate you being here. All right. Again, thank you for being here. I really do appreciate it. It's awesome of you to be here. I do this every Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And if you don't know who I am, and I don't usually do this on these lives, I don't introduce myself, and maybe I should. Maybe that's a huge oversight. But my name is Mike Simmons. I'm a real estate investor in Michigan. I started my real estate investing business back in 2008. I was doing it as a side hustle. I was working full-time in the automotive industry and kind of stumbled around, made a lot of mistakes for about 5 or 6 years until I finally realized that the key to my success, or the reason for the success that I wasn't having, and I was having some success. I was flipping houses. I was doing actually pretty well, but I knew what I wanted. I knew that what I was doing, running around, doing everything myself and no processes, no team, no nothing, it was making me money, but I knew that I was doing it wrong. And I knew that it was going to keep me from getting to where I wanted to go. And so after 5 or 6 years, I finally realized the key to what I really wanted was to get in the right rooms, be around the right people, find a mentor, find a coach, find a mastermind that I could be plugged into to learn what it was that I didn't know. Because it's really hard to get too down on yourself for not knowing things that you have no way of knowing. And so getting around the right people, learning from the right mentors and coaches absolutely made all the difference in the world of my business. I went from being almost flatlined for growth to being like hockey stick growth, almost straight up, like astronomically more revenue a year after getting plugged into the right people and asking the right questions and having access to somebody who had been where I am and had done that, and they had grown and prospered and built this fantastic business that I wanted to have. Well, if somebody has something or knows how to get something that you want, you need to find them, seek them out, ask questions, do what you have to do to get to where you want to go in terms of putting yourself in front of the right people. And so I do this on Wednesdays for partially that reason. I want to give back. I want to help. You guys have questions, and if it's a question that we can tackle right here on this live, then let's do it. I want to help you move forward. Sometimes you just need a little bit of help. You just need to answer one thing, like one or two questions, and it'll just make all the difference in the world. So that's what I do here on Wednesdays. I've also created a program that is for those of you out there that maybe have already started your business and you've done some stuff. Maybe you haven't done a ton, but you've done some flips. You're kind of moving forward, but you are where I was about 10 years ago. You're making some progress. You don't know what you don't know, and you have no idea how to turn this side hustle or this small business into a business that is thriving, predictable revenue, profitable, right? It's one thing to generate money, but how much of it are you keeping? And so being profitable is huge. So I want in my program to show you not only how to grow, how to build your team, how to structure your business, how to get more leads, how to get better leads, how to find all the money you need, all these things, right? How to talk to sellers and buyers and realtors and all these people that you have to interface with. Like, how do you put all this together? What's the plan for sustained growth and sustained profitability? That's what my program is for. It's for the folks that have gotten started and just don't know what to do next. Or maybe you're in this market that we're in right now and you're thinking, I can't win. There's too many, variables against me. It's a hot market. There's a lot of investors in my market. And what do I do, right? So there's a lot of things that go into building a successful business, and I want to help you in a real meaningful way to help you with your business and your questions and really show you and lay out the plan that was laid out for me, honestly, like 6 years ago, laid out for me of what I needed to do to build my business and create a 7-figure revenue profit business. And that's what the program's about. So if you're interested, if that's something that is interesting to you, then you can go, very simple, go to 7-Figure Investor. That's the word 7, not the number, the word 7 spelled out, 7figureinvestor.com. Go there, check it out. I have made the program super affordable for anybody. And what you're going to gain, like what I am going to give you, what the map that I'm going to lay out for you in the program is worth, 10, 100, I don't know, 1,000, whatever. It's worth so much more than what I'm charging. So, but I want to be able to help a lot of people. And so here we go. It's not an unlimited amount of people that I'm going to take. It starts around mid-March. We've had to move that date a few times for internal reasons and scheduling and things like that. But it's finally nailed down, and I should know the exact date right now, but I don't. I want to say it's maybe somebody in the background here on my team can help me. I think it's March 22nd, I believe, is the start date. And I'm sort of slow rolling this so I can get the answer from all of the lovely folks that work here. Angela, I'm talking directly to you. Good. Okay. March 22nd. The program starts on March 22nd, and we are just going to kill it. And I'm a super competitive person. And so my goal is not just to meet your expectations and show you how to build a 7-figure business and just, help you crush it this year. My goal is to go way far beyond that and really, really over deliver on everything you expect. So that's my goal, because I want everyone in that program to leave that program knowing exactly what to do, being on the path to getting it done and building a 7-figure business. That's the goal. And I know that I can do that. I've done it over and over again for hundreds of other investors in the past. But this is the first time I've offered something that's mine, that I created, that I'm trying to help you personally, and there's nobody else involved but me. And so I take it pretty personal. So if you want to check it out, 7figureinvestor.com. All right, let's dive into the questions for today. That's why you're all here. These questions, I just want to remind you guys, they come from all different places. Some are emailed to me. Some people DM me and Instagram and TikTok and wherever, all the places that I am. And sometimes there are people who ask questions after we go off live. And so maybe they don't realize we're done, or they ask it in the comments or things like that. So they come from everywhere, and then we answer them here on Wednesdays. And if you're here live with me right now, you can ask questions, and that'll go to the top. We prioritize the questions that are being asked live right here. So if you have questions, don't be shy. Don't wait for me to finish what I'm doing. Just type it in the chat, and it'll get in front of me. Okay, first question. I'm currently toying with the idea of going for a small multifamily property instead of a single family home to make the numbers work in a more competitive market. I'm curious to see what people have to say in regards to what type of property you prefer. So if you're listening to this live, if you're watching live, go ahead and put it in the comments what you prefer. For me, I can't say that I don't prefer a certain style of house, but I can tell you what I've experienced with and what I have done in the past, right? And you might say, well, if that's what you've done in the past, that's what you prefer. Not necessarily. I see the advantages all the way around. But for me, it's always been single family houses. And that's really mostly because that's where I started. The mentor that I mentioned several years back did single family houses. And so that's where I cut my teeth, and that's where I learned the business. I learned it in single family. And I think single family versus multifamily, it's very debatable. There's not a right answer. I know there's not a right answer. I prefer to do what I know the best and what I feel I have a really high expertise, and that's single family. I know stuff about multifamily. I know way more about single family and that world. So that's what I do. And I guess maybe that means I prefer it. I don't know. I don't necessarily prefer it. If my mentor had been a multifamily person and said, listen, you've done single families to this point, but here's why I think you should do multifamily, and I had gone that route, I might have a totally different answer. But I've always done single family. But there's advantages to multifamily, especially when you start getting into like apartment buildings and things like that. One roof, one centralized location for all of your maintenance and repairs and CapEx stuff. And, with multifamily, especially larger multifamily, you can directly affect the price. You can buy something for $1 million, make some minor improvements and raise all the rents and do a few things. And now you have a $1.5 or $2 million apartment complex, right? Like it's not it is sort of that straightforward. That's kind of what it is, but you can do that much easier and much more predictably. It's much more of a math equation with larger multifamily than it is single family. Single family is still a little bit of math meets art, right? Like when people are appraising a house or when they're running comps on a house, there's some subjectivity to it. There's some subjective thinking that goes into it. Some of it is math, and some of it is like, well, here's a house that's exactly the same house that sold for this, right? But now you have to start digging in. Was it updated recently? Was it not updated recently? Is that one that's close to it? Is it on a main road and yours isn't? Like there's still some subjective opinions about what that house is worth. It's not an exact science. Where multifamily is much more, especially large multifamily. I'm not talking about duplexes and triplexes. I'm talking about like 10 or more units. It becomes much more of an exact science, right? So in that case, multifamily is probably pursued by a smaller percentage of investors than single family, and that's I think what you're alluding to here is you're going potentially multifamily. Because it's a competitive market, right? And when we know that most people go for single family for whatever reason, that's just what the masses know. And so when people get into real estate, even if they want to do multifamily, they assume they have to start with single family. And so you end up with more single family investors in the market. So it's not a bad idea. I don't prefer single family over multi. It's just what I know. And so that's what I've been doing for a long time. Okay. Next question. I have been remodeling a duplex to hold as a rental property, and one of my employees is interested in renting one unit. What advice would you give in a situation? Is it potentially dangerous mixing of relationships? Yes, it is. It is absolutely dangerous because if this employee is valuable to you and you rent to them and they don't pay the rent for whatever reason, it's going to cause a conflict. You're going to have to evict them probably, unless you just want to let them live there rent free, which that's not a business, right? That's a charity. So if you're running a business and you have to let them go, or not let them go, but you have to evict them, how will that affect them at work? My guess is it'll affect them very negatively. And that's not even to mention, if let's just say they weren't performing at work. They were paying their rent, but they weren't performing at work, and you had to let them go. Just natural course of business. You have somebody on your team. Maybe they don't belong on your team anymore. Maybe they're not performing. Maybe they're the weak link. Whatever the case, right? You have to let them go. Now they stop paying rent, and you evict them. I don't know. Like, are they going to go to a judge and say they can't pay rent because their landlord fired them from the job that paid them so they could pay rent? I don't know. Like, that's a ridiculous argument to me, but what could happen? You have to run through all the scenarios and find out if it's worth the risk. And by the way, just because they want to rent it, even if you decide that this person is so great, will never have a conflict, they're a great worker, they'll always pay the rent, that's fine. You should still run them through the same quality or background checks, look at references, like everything that you would do with a normal tenant. Don't shortcut a system that you have, because doing the work up front on a tenant is without a doubt one of the most important parts of being a landlord. It's easier to be a landlord, and all of your rental properties will be less hassle and headache for you if you do a fantastic job qualifying people up front. The minute you start just letting anybody in who can pay the first and last month's rent, and you don't do a lot of checks, that's when you start having evictions, you start having people abusing your property, and you start getting some of these professional renters who get in, they know the laws, they stop paying rent. You have to, by the time you get through the eviction process, especially with COVID and everything that's gone on the last few years, now they're there 90, 180 days, and then they start paying rent again, right? And so you can't evict them, and then they stop paying rent, and then the cycle starts again. So I'm not saying your employee would do that, but short answer, I would not be interested in renting to an employee in most cases. I'm not going to say that I'm not human, and if something was happening and I really had a soft spot for this person and I really felt for their situation, maybe, but I just don't like it. I don't think it's a good idea. I think you're so much better off if you steer totally clear of that. But if you do it, just make it real clear to them that you have two relationships with them. One of them is as an employee. I'm sorry, an employer, employee-employer relationship. The other relationship you have with them is a landlord, and they are separate. They have nothing to do with each other. If they don't pay rent, they're going to get evicted. Like, make sure they're well aware of that. But I still say don't do it. But completely up to you. That's my opinion. Okay. Kyle's jumping in here. Live question. Kyle, thanks for coming tonight. I appreciate it. Good to see you. The question is, Kyle asks, when you buy a rental from your wholesale business leads, do you pay a fee to your wholesale company? How do you structure that so that it's beneficial to your rental company? Yes. So, Kyle, you're asking this because you know that I'm a wholesaler, and so we find deals all the time. We assign the contracts to end buyers. So the way it works in my company is we have to bid on the properties also, kind of, right? We give ourselves as owner, me and my partner, we give ourselves the luxury of matching the highest bid, and then that's what we pay. So whatever the highest bid was on the property, like legit bid, not some flyer, but somebody who said, okay, I'm ready to sign the contracts. Like, I want to do this. As an owner, I can look at that property and say, I want it, and I'll buy it for what he's buying it or she's buying it for. Like, I'll match the highest bid. And so my rental company, the company that holds my rentals, buys it from my wholesale company, and we pay the assignment fee, whatever it was. Now, I've bought a lot of properties from my company where nobody bid on the property, but I wanted it. I thought it was good property, and we just didn't get bids on it for whatever reason. Or maybe we got bids on it, but the bids were really low, and they weren't that bad. $5,000 assignment fee. Like, I match it, and if nobody bids on it, then I look at it objectively and just look at it fairly and say, is the price that it's under contract for all I can pay? And if nobody else wants it, and we're going to have to cancel the contract, I'll take it for the contract price. If I think that it's fair to give my company $5,000 assignment fee because I think that's just what's fair, then I'll do that, right? And so we don't shortchange the wholesaling company just because I'm an owner. I don't get to just go in there and like, wow, I'm going to, this property would have made us $30,000 as a company, But because I'm owner, I'm going to take it and I'm not paying that $30,000 assignment fee. We don't do that because people in my company, a lot of them are tied to the net. They're incentivized by our revenue and specifically our net revenue or net income. So if I do that, I'm going to demoralize my team. It's just going to make everybody demoralized and mad. You know what I mean? Like it's all going to come out. So we don't do that. We play the game fairly and we play it as if we were a buyer, a normal buyer, with the one perk of we get to see the bids and we can match the highest bid. So we do give ourselves that luxury, but yeah, I buy them for my company. I don't just take them for no fee. We pay the fees, whatever is appropriate. Okay, next question. Let's see here. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm peeking in at the live questions. Here we go. Next question. I'm using the burst strategy on a rental I have here in Royal Oak, Michigan. That's my area. Nice town. Royal Oak's very nice town. And I'm wondering if you have any advice on how long you should wait to refinance after purchasing. The only rehab I had to do was refreshing the interior paint. In my opinion, I would wait as long as the lending institution that's going to do your refi makes you wait. So if they make you wait a year, then you wait a year or find somebody else. If they only make you wait 6 months, then refi in 6 months. Some places will refi in 90 days or sooner. There are people who would do it even sooner. I would refi as soon as they let you, pull that money out, rinse and repeat. That's just my opinion. You're doing the BRRRR strategy. That leads me to believe that you're an investor who wants to grow their portfolio. And so if that's the case, speed, right? Speed is important. So I would refi out as soon as possible, and you need to talk to whoever's doing that refi to ask them what their requirements are. But honestly, if it's like a year, find somebody else, in my opinion. If it's 6 months, I would still look for somebody who can do it sooner. I want to refi out of that thing as soon as it's rented and renovated and ready to go. I want that clock to start. I want to start that refi process right away so that I can get my money out, go into the next property, rinse and repeat, right? Doing one of these a year is a slow road, and I'm just not a slow road guy. Okay, next question from Gabriel Moreno. Hey, Gabriel, how are you doing? Let's see, question is, what are some methods flippers and new home builders pivot to in order to survive a real estate downturn? I'll tell you what, I don't know what builders do. I'm not a builder. I can't really answer that question effectively. But house flippers, sometimes house flippers go the wholesale route when the when the real estate is like it is now, but you're asking about a downturn. And so I think sometimes, again, I don't know about builders. I think builders get really nervous, especially if they have a lot of long-term projects in play. They're the ones I think who get burned and got burned back when things turned the other way in '08. But as far as flippers, I don't think they should still flip. I mean, anybody, house flippers, landlords, wholesalers, they can keep their business going the way it is in a way, right? So I've said this on this live a million times. I've said it on my podcast a million times. I've said this to everyone who will listen. The only reason why the downturn should be of interest, or the upturn, right? When things start going up or down, you need to know what's happening in the market so that you can adjust your strategy a little bit. But that doesn't mean flippers get out, builders hunker down and do, like, you don't hide from the market. You go into it, right? You go right into it. So for a house flipper, for example, when things start going down, they just have to make sure that when they're running their comps for when the property will be eventually flipped and done, that they're running conservative comps. They're not being super aggressive with their comps and with their pricing structures, right? If the house is worth, after renovation, if it's going to be worth $250,000 right now and you're in a downturn, you can't assume you're going to get $250,000 unless you're flipping and turning these things in like 30, 90 or 30 or 60 days. You start going into 90, 120, 180 days, the market could look different. And so back in like '08 and '09, when I started, I needed to look at something that was, let's just say it had an ARV of 200,000 when I bought it. I had to assume that it was going to be like 180 185 when I went to sell it. I had to use conservative numbers like that because in a lot of cases, it was worth less than what it was the day I bought it, right? Or it was the potential of that property was lower 6 months later, 5 months later than it was the day I bought it. Let's put it that way. So house flippers need to buy more conservatively, and they need to price their properties at the end a little more conservatively, because what happens is, and what happened back then, is that people would list their property at 200 after renovations. They would list it for 200 because 200 was the number 6 months ago, and they would realize, oh no, it's not worth 200, it's worth 180. And so they would drop their price by $10,000. Now they're asking 190 when it's worth 180. And they would sit on it for another month or two until it was worth 170. And then they would lower it to 180, right? They called it chasing the market down. You don't want to chase the market down. That's a really, really bad thing. You need to be conservative on your buy price, and then you need to be realistic / conservative on your sell price. That's what happens in a downturn. But you continue being a house flipper. I can't stress that enough, guys. I don't think a house flipper should, a cat shouldn't turn into a dog. A turtle shouldn't turn into a rabbit. A truck doesn't turn into a car. You don't change who and what you are. Do what you're great at. Just tweak it to the market. And when the market is going up like it has been for the last few years, you can buy a little bit more aggressively and you can sell more aggressively, right? And an upturn market and a market that's going up, it's a seller's market. Buy aggressive, sell aggressive. When it's going down, buy conservative, sell conservative. It's just, you just change your approach a little bit. You don't wholesale change your model. And if this sounds like I'm yelling at you, I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to really be clear about this, because I think the mistake people make is they hunker down and they just get out of the market, or they change their approach. Like a house flipper who turns into a wholesaler in a down market will fail a lot of times, because I got news for you guys. House flipping and wholesaling are not the same business. They're just not. They're different. They're in the same industry for sure, but take it from someone who flipped for 6 years and then I wholesaled now for like 6 going on 7 years. Those are two different businesses. And I've tried running a full-scale flipping business with the mechanisms I put in place to be a wholesaler. Didn't work. It's not the same. And I have experience in both. It did not work. So if you're a flipper, be a flipper. Just be a smart flipper. Change your strategy a little bit and adapt with the market. If you're a wholesaler, be a wholesaler. If you're a landlord, be a landlord, right? That's my advice. And by the way, we don't know there's going to be a downturn. So I just got done doing a bunch of videos that I'm going to be releasing about the market and the fact that we just don't know that there's going to be a downturn. I thought there was going to be already. So if you would have asked me a year and a half ago, I would have told you it would have happened by now. There would have already been a correction, and there hasn't been. The market's very strong. So maybe it's going to plateau and then go back up. I can tell you this, in 20 years, real estate will be worth more than it is now. I can almost guarantee, listen, things could happen, right? World War III, we could be in real trouble in 10, 20 years, maybe. But assuming things are not catastrophic, real estate will be worth more in 20 years than it is right now. And it's worth now more than it was 20 years ago, right? It will always go up in the long term. We just don't know in the short term what the ups and downs will be. I've not seen a downturn yet. I don't know that there will be. So don't count on a downturn for sure. Just stay the course. Do what you're doing, but keep your ear to the ground. And when the market shifts, if and when, react to that appropriately with the way you buy and sell. That's my advice. Okay, next question, Alan Boinke. Hey, I know Alan. What's up, Alan? How you doing, man? It's been a long time, actually. Okay, so the question, Alan's question. Hi, Mike. Just curious if you're using Heasel in your inbound marketing in your Metro Detroit market. Nice to see business doing well. I'm asking about Heasel unless you know what it is. I don't know what it is. I've never heard of Heasel. I don't know what that is. I have not a clue. So if you want to tell me, I would be interested in being educated, but I don't know what it is. So no, I'm not using it. I'm not using it because I don't know what it is, but maybe I should be. Let me know what that is. Okay, next question is from Need You. Hey man, welcome back. It's this is a regular. Need You's a regular for me. When you mention, here's the question. When you mention buying aggressive, what percentage would you pay over existing comps? Market, Michigan. I don't work like that. It's case by case. But if you want me to ballpark it, I will, because that's, saying it depends is a horrible answer, but it does sort of depend. So the way, everything that we buy it. Okay. So there's a real long answer here and there's a short answer. The short answer is, what would we buy it over the comps in this market? I don't know, maybe 10%, depending on the price. Obviously, if we're talking about a $50,000 house, maybe I would buy it 15% over. If we're talking about a $200,000 house, maybe 8 to 10, right? So it's going to fluctuate with the cost of the house. It can't just be a straight number. But we don't work like that, really. What we do is we certainly look at the comps. We really look at them where they are right now. We don't count on appreciation. Even in an aggressive market like this, we don't count on appreciation because I was around for 08, 09, right? I didn't get burned by that time, but I saw the people that got burned. And everybody who got burned, not everybody. Well, let's put it this way. Anybody who counted on appreciation, like appreciation was critical to their success or to their profitability, got burned. Not everyone who got burned was counting on appreciation. So it's just the way, I don't want to misrepresent what I'm trying to say. But if appreciation was a big part of your strategy, you got burned probably in 08, 09. And I saw that. So we don't count on appreciation. We try to keep a little conservative on what we think the house could be worth, but we get real aggressive on the buy side. But here's sort of like the hidden secret in my company. We're always aggressive on the buy side. So even 5 years ago, when the market wasn't nearly as hot as it is now, we got properties as low as possible. And a lot of it is psychology. I swear it's psychology. So there's a story that somebody told me once, and it really illustrates what I'm talking about. Okay. So it was actually my mentor. So it was early on when I started really kind of putting things together and understanding what I needed to do to build my business. My mentor told me a story about an acquisitions manager of his. And his acquisition manager didn't run his own comps. So there were other people on the team that would run comps, and they would give it to the acquisition manager before they went on their appointment, and they would basically give them that maximum allowable offer. Well, the person who ran the comps for the acquisitions person made a mistake, but they made a mistake in the good way. In other words, they estimated the after repair value to be much lower than what it actually should have been. And so, excuse me. And so the maximum allowable offer that they gave the acquisition person was incredibly low. But since the acquisition person didn't run any of the comps, he didn't have a frame of reference to know that was low. He just knew the number he was given, and he went to the appointment with a number he was given. No reason to think it's wrong. In his mind, he had to get it for that price. And so he conducted the appointment as if that was the number he needed to get. And he sort of got, good rapport, and he built this relationship, and he figured out what the problem was of the seller, like what they were struggling with, and he figured out a solution for him, and empathy, and it was a great appointment, and the seller loved him, and the acquisition person got it for the price that he was told he had to get it for. And then when he got back and brought the contract back, the team looked at it and said, holy cow, like, this is incredibly, how did you do this? And he's like, well, I had to. That was the maximum allowable offer. That's all I could do. And so when the team started looking at it, they realized, oh, there was a huge mistake here. Like, these aren't the right comps. This isn't right at all. This house is worth way more than we thought it was. Okay, moral of the story is we get properties as low as we can. Every property we go into is we're not necessarily saying, what does a seller want or what do we need to get? We're saying, how do we solve the seller's problem effectively at a price that is a win-win for both of us, that where they feel like they won, but we win, right? And sometimes that means we buy houses a little over what we probably should. We're being, we have to take it down for a price that isn't awesome, but it's okay. And sometimes that means we get a house at an extremely discounted price where we didn't necessarily have to get it that low, but we solved the problem. They were happy. Everybody's happy. It's all good. And we got it for a low price. And so we don't just throw an arbitrary, like, here's what they're asking and here's the percentage we're going to take off, or here's the ARV, here's the percentage we're going to take off. We don't run it that way. We try to get everything as low as humanly possible. In this environment, you certainly have to, because it's a seller's market, right? And so it's always hard for me to answer the question of like, do you use a 70% rule? How much percent do you pay over market value? Like, we just don't look at it that way. Every single property, every single appointment, we are doing our very best to get that property at the lowest possible price while still making the seller happy with the entire process and making them satisfied that they got what they needed out of that exchange, right? And that's it's more of a philosophical answer, and I apologize for that because I don't like giving philosophical answers, but that's honestly what we do. That's how we run our business. And so sometimes that means we get a property, it's like, wow, there's like $100,000 assignment fee here. And then other ones we get, it's like, we'll be lucky to get a couple $1,000s out of this one, right? If we ran it with just a straight percentage, the one where we had $100,000 of profit coming, that would be much lower because we would just mark it down by a percentage, get it for that price and move on, right? You have to treat every house like a completely original animal, a totally new situation that has to be approached with a new set of eyes. And really what it boils down to is listening to the seller, understanding what they're struggling with, solving that problem, and then buying their property as a byproduct of solving their problem, right? And sometimes that means we get great deals. Sometimes they're not great deals, right? But we still make money, right? It all kind of makes the ball move down the field. But we have targets in our business. We're not happy with making $2,000. Yes, it's positive. It's in the right direction, but it's not. You can't, I mean, in my opinion, at least, you can't run a business off of $2,000 paydays in real estate. It just doesn't work. The volume you'd have to do is obscene, right? For us to maintain the revenue that we want to maintain. So anyway, super long answer to a relatively simple question. All right. Mike Aziz. Hey, Mike, how you doing? Welcome back again. A longtime follower of this Wednesday Live. Question, with your business model, what percentage of walkthroughs does your company close? That's a really good question. We have traditionally been in the 30 to 35% range. So we get approximately 3 to 4 contracts for every appointment. That's just traditionally what we do. We have months where we kill it and we do way more than that. We have months where it's tough and we don't do that, right? But we average in the 30 to 40% range. So we get, 10 appointments, we're going to get 3 or 4 contracts. That's pretty typical for us. Okay, we're getting close to the end here. Let's see, is there any other brand new questions? No, it looks like we got it. Oh yeah, Alan's asking for a clarification of HESL. Can you clarify what HESL is? Yeah, that's me. Sorry. Yeah. So what is HESL? Okay. It looks like that's all the questions for tonight. There's a bunch more questions that I was going to answer, but we got some live questions, so that's awesome. It's always way more fun to answer those. I'm going to call that for tonight then. We'll save these other questions for next time. If you have questions still, and we're logging off here, but if you have questions, throw them in and we will get to them for sure next week. But either way, guys, if you're listening to this on my podcast, and by the way, I do replay this on my podcast. Obviously, we can't interact and have a conversation like we can in this live, but if you do miss it and want to hear it, you can go check it out on my podcast, which is called Just Start Real Estate. So go there and check it out wherever you listen to podcasts. Otherwise, I'll be back here next Wednesday at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, like I am every week, to answer you guys' questions. Also, if you want to work with me this year, if you want to really take your business to the next level, get very, very serious, get down to work, roll up our sleeves and just crush it, go to 7-Figure Investor, the word 7, 7figureinvestor.com, and sign up, and I will help you out in a very extreme, very deep, very personal way. I'm going to take it personally. I want to see you succeed, and I'll be in your corner. So anyways, go check that out, and I will see you guys next week. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. Remember, I do these Q&As live on Facebook on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I hope you enjoyed this. Tune in next week for another installment of live Q&As answering your questions. Okay, until next time.